You may remember that US President Trump announced from the Oval Office of the White House that America has introduced a new fighter jet in the form of the F-47. He said production had begun, praised it as a sixth-generation fighter jet, the best in the world, unmatched by any other, and noted that it is being manufactured by Boeing. Now, a new update regarding this F-47 aircraft has come forward. U.S. Air Force General David Alvin has confirmed that Boeing has already started manufacturing this sixth-generation F-47 aircraft. This means that earlier it was only a concept, but now its first prototype is being developed. Once the prototype is ready, it will undergo taxi runs, then the first flight, and afterwards the U.S. Air Force will begin further work on it. But wait, Donald Trump had said that the U.S. has already built the NGAD and that its prototype has also flown. President Trump, in a very proud manner, declared that the U.S. was the first to fly the prototype of a sixth-generation fighter jet. However, the U.S. Air Force chief is saying something else, that the first test flight will only take place in 2028. General Alvin further stated that the F-47 will achieve its first flight by 2028, and by the mid-2030s, around 2035, it will be inducted into the U.S. Air Force. The F-47, previously called Next Generation Air Dominance, is the long-awaited successor to the F-22 Raptor. It will feature advanced stealth, modern sensors, powerful engines, and autonomous drone wingmen. Alvin said the service plans to buy at least 185 F-47s. That would equal or surpass the current F-22 fleet size. He argued that the aircraft is central to ensuring the U.S. holds air superiority in a future conflict. President Trump's aim will be to ensure that this aircraft completes its first flight during his presidency, so that most of the development process takes place while he is still in office. The reason behind this is that President Trump wants to personally take credit for the sixth-generation NGAD program. That is why this fighter jet has been named the F-47, since Trump is the 47th President of the United States. He will make every possible effort to ensure that the F-47 prototype is flown during his presidency and that further prototypes are also prepared under his tenure. This gives us a timeline from United States of America for its sixth-generation aircraft. But the question arises, where will China's sixth-generation aircraft be by then? America is saying their sixth-generation fighter will fly in 2028, while China's sixth-generation aircraft already began flying in December 2024. Both of China's sixth-generation jets, one being developed in Shenyang and the other in Chengdu, have already conducted flights, and multiple videos and images of them are available. This clearly shows that China is at least 4 years ahead of the US in this race. And given China's speed, it may widen this gap further. The US claims it will fly the F-47 in 2028, but delays could push this timeline further. Similarly, the plan is to induct the aircraft by 2035, but that also raises questions. If you look at America's track record, for example, the recently introduced B-21 bomber, its first flight was conducted in November 2023. 2 years later, in September 2025, the US only introduced the second prototype. Testing and modifications are still ongoing, and even a small batch for combat readiness will take more time. If we look further back, the induction timelines for America's fifth-generation fighters, the F-22 and F-35, were much longer. From introduction to induction into service, it took nearly 15 years in the case of the F-35. In contrast, China inducted its J-20 into the Air Force just 6 years after introduction. Clearly, China's induction timeline is much shorter compared to the US. This difference in development speed is also noted by General David Alvin himself. He admitted that America's adversary is not lagging behind. They have already introduced sixth-generation fighters and are progressing rapidly. Faster development means more data, more modifications, quicker production, and sooner delivery to their Air Force. This allows Chinese pilots to gain mastery over these jets earlier, develop new tactics, and prepare to dominate their adversaries. Currently, the US Air Force is in a rush to compete with China in 2 key areas: air-to-air missiles and fighter aircraft. In missile technology, the US is catching up quickly with systems like the AIM-260 and other new weapons already being deployed to the Navy. But in fighter jet development, China is at least 4 years ahead. The real question is when the F-47 prototype will appear, when it will fly, and how soon it will move to production. Until then, we cannot determine the exact gap. However, one thing is clear. China is currently ahead of the US in the development of 6th-generation fighters, and it seems to be widening this lead. Another major concern for the US is long-range BVR missiles. Currently, the US has an active BVR missile with a maximum range of about 160 kilometers. But ever since it was revealed that China's PL-15 achieved a successful kill at over 200 kilometers even against an advanced fighter like the Rafale, the US has accelerated its work on long-range BVR missiles. Recently, the F-22 achieved a long-range kill in testing using the AIM-120 AMRAAM, though this was only during trials and not in real combat. However, the US Air Force has not clarified exactly at what distance this kill was achieved. To counter the PL-15, the US has also sped up work on the AIM-260 JATM program. This was today's information and analysis. Hopefully, you found it useful. Do share your thoughts in the comments. That's all for today's update. Please subscribe and like this video.